Viltrox 56mm f1.4 autofocus lens is a perfect solution for portraits on APS-C cameras. Let's review this. You can buy this Viltrox lens for Fuji X, Sony E, Nikon Z and Canon EOS-M. 56mm f1.4 lens on a crop sensor body like Sony A6300 with 1.5x crop factor will give you around 85mm focal length and the background blur of about f2.1 in full frame equivalent. So now let's talk about the kit. In the box you'll find some paperwork, of course, a very nice pouch to carry the lens around, the lens itself, the front and back caps, and a great lens hood, which is made out of metal. Just have a listen. On the body of the lens you will find an aperture control ring which can be set to auto or to manual, and it has a very smooth rotation and you can adjust your aperture in video mode flawlessly and without visible stops. On the rear you can find a micro USB port for firmware updates. There is no weather sealing gasket near the lens mount, so my suggestion is to use this lens carefully and don't shoot under heavy rain or in dusty environments. This Viltrox lens also features 9-bladed aperture. On the front of the lens we can see the minimal focusing distance, it's 0.6 meters, it's okay. Also here we can see that this lens does feature STM autofocus motor and tiny 52mm filter thread. Viltrox 56mm f1.4 weighs only 290 grams, which complements nicely your small mirrorless cameras like Sony A6300. And when you detach the lens hood, it's a very small and I would say tiny lens. The lens itself is made out of plastic mostly, but it's a very good quality plastic, no complaints here. The focus ring is smooth, it's responsive, kinda linear, so also a pretty good one. So now guys, let's compare Viltrox 56mm on the Sony A6300 at f1.4 aperture and Mica 85mm f1.8 lens but on a full-frame camera Sony A7S III. And a big shout out to my daughter, and she's pretty bored doing those tests for me, but thank you very much, Ksusha. Straight away we can see the difference in the background blur. As I said before, f1.4 on a crop sensor is around f2.1 and the f1.8 on the full frame will give you more background blur. And even on this shot I can see some color fringing in the bokeh highlights on the Viltrox. You see those green outlines on the bokehs, and we don't see those as much on the Mica 85 f1.8 on a full frame camera. So here is a closer look, it's almost the minimal focus and distance, kinda, it's very close. And now it's looking much better. The bokeh of Viltrox is a bit busier, but overall it looks pleasing to my eye. So now let's test the autofocus with Sony A6300. Keep in mind guys that this camera is pretty old, it's like 7 years old already, and I've been using this camera for years and years. And as you can see, it's not doing the best job. I think that the Sony ZV-E10 will show you much better performance, but here is the example of how this lens performs on an older body without even the eye autofocus tracking capabilities. And now let's switch to the Sony A7S III in Super 35 crop mode in Full HD and the fastest AF speed and sensitivity. And I would say it's working faster and more reliable, but still I can see some jumps like before focusing. It's not the best autofocus performance anyway, but let me say it's really decent. And here how it looks on a full frame camera, and we only need to crop in at about 1.3 times and you will see no vignetting anymore. The focus breathing is existent, but it's not too bad, and the Mica lens on the full-frame camera shows worse performance in this case, and 85mm lenses are notorious for the focus breathing performance, so it's an average result here. Now let's talk chromatic aberrations, and as you can see guys, it's a real nightmare at f1.4. We see a ton of purple and green fringing on the branches. Here is one more example. And you have to stop down this lens if you have that contrasty things and objects in your shot. Don't shoot at f1.4. It gets a little bit better by f1.6 and much better by f2 and disappears only by f2.8. The minimum focusing distance is 60 centimeters, but at f1.4 you get a lot of ghosting, low contrast, and overall the image quality is pretty bad, and also you can see a ton of chromatic aberrations, so shoot at least at f3.2 or maybe even f4 for the best close-up image quality. So now let's talk sharpness, vignette and distortion. This lens projects a little bit of pincushion distortion, nothing too bad, and now let's have a look at different aperture values. Vignetting gets much better at f2, at 2.8 it's looking even better, and overall the sharpness in the center is great throughout almost the whole range, but starting from f4 is razor sharp. And with the help of waveform, we can have a look at the vignette values in the corners of the image, and by f2.8 it eliminates completely. Here is 500% crop from the corner, the f5.6 is the sharpest, as well as f8. And we still see some color fringing at f1.4. Now let's have a look at a couple of JPEG photos straight out of camera with Sony A6300, but if you shoot RAW and correct those and color grade those, you'll get much better results, but overall I'm pretty pleased with those results. The only thing that bugs me is the chromatic aberrations wide open, and all of those shots are shot wide open, of course. Also, Viltrox did send me those two pocket lights. They are called WE Light S05, and it's a pretty straightforward light with a range of 2800 Kelvin to 6800 Kelvin and RGB capabilities. It has 108 LEDs and the power of 5 watts. Also pretty high CRI and TLCI ratings at 95+, 20 built-in customizable effects. A very nice app which is very convenient and easy to use, no learning curve at all. It charges via USB Type-C, in the box you'll find the USB Type-C cable and also the hot shoe adapter, and on the maximum brightness they'll last you about 70 minutes. And they are very lightweight at 108 grams, so I guess it's a very nice addition to any videographer's kit, being that cheap and lightweight. I'll leave a link down below. And finally guys, let's have a look at the flares performance. We have a pretty deep lens hood and it helps a little bit, but the flares are really vibrant and pronounced with this lens, and we do lose a ton of contrast as well. So here it is at f1.4. Now let's switch to f2.8. At f2.8 we also do get a little spot with a huge loss of contrast, and the flare itself is really vibrant. I don't like this flare performance, to be honest guys, but you know, if you shoot not against the sun you'll get decent results, or maybe you do need this kind of flare in your shot and it gets really reduced by f8. So finally guys, the price is $280, which is really reasonable for this lens. I did enjoy using it, it's very compact, lightweight, the lens hood itself is really well built, and the images you get with this lens are gorgeous sometimes. But the chromatic aberration performance needs to be corrected, I think, in the future models of this lens, and also I didn't like the flare as well. But overall, it's a decent lens for $280, no complaints here at all. So guys, what do you think of Viltrox 56mm f1.4? Please share all of your thoughts in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, please smash the like and subscribe buttons as the same my videos, and hit the notifications bell. Here are a couple of videos for you to watch next, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, bye.